I took my granddaughter in after her parents split, gave her my late husband's study to help her focus on school. One day, I found my wedding photos shredded in the trash and a note saying I was too old to keep up. That night, she told me she'd rather live in a shelter than with me. I let her go, but weeks later, I found her name on a document she shouldn't have signed. My name is Marie. I'm 68 years old, and I live alone in Springfield, Missouri. I've been in this house for over 40 years. Raised 2 boys here. Buried my husband here. His name was Henry. We were married for 45 years. He died in that recliner in the living room, watching the Cardinals play. After he passed, I kept most things the same. I couldn't bring myself to change too much. His study stayed the way it was. He built that room himself. I used to bring him coffee in there while he worked on his books or stared out the window. That room felt sacred. His smell was still in the wood. Then Ava moved in. Ava is my granddaughter. My son's daughter. She was 17 when everything happened. Her parents were going through one of the nastiest divorces I've ever seen. Screaming matches, court orders, therapists, restraining orders, it was ugly. Ava got caught in the middle. My son called and asked if she could stay with me for a while, just until they figured things out. Of course I said yes. She's my granddaughter. When she arrived, I wanted her to feel safe, so I gave her the best room in the house. Henry's study. I told myself he'd want that she'd maybe appreciate being surrounded by his books, his warmth. She barely said thank you. Just walked in, dumped her bags, and closed the door. The first month, I gave her space. She kept to herself mostly. I cooked for her, did her laundry, paid to upgrade our internet so she could attend school online, bought her a better phone plan. She asked for a car so she could get to tutoring sessions. I gave her mine. An old Chevy I'd been using to get groceries and go to church. I started walking to the store. She never said thank you for any of it. At first, I thought maybe she was just in shock. Her whole life was turned upside down. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I made her favorite pasta, left little notes outside her door. Nothing changed. Then I noticed what she was doing to the study. She took down all of Henry's framed degrees, his photos, the little things he'd kept from our trips. Dumped them into boxes and shoved them into the garage. Replaced his shelves with makeup mirrors, LED lights, and ring lights for videos. I found one of his old journals with the cover torn off and used as scrap paper. I asked her gently, "Could we maybe keep some of Grandpa's things in there?" She rolled her eyes. "This is my room now. You said I could make it mine." I didn't push it. I felt small, like a guest in my own home. Then one Thursday morning, I was cleaning the kitchen. Took out the trash like I always do. That's when I saw it. A thick wad of paper in the bottom of the bag. Torn, wet from coffee grounds. I pulled it out, confused. And then I saw our wedding photo. Or what was left of it. My face slashed through. Henry's face smeared with something sticky. I dug deeper. More torn photos. Our honeymoon in Venice. Our 25th anniversary. All destroyed. And taped to one of them was a pink sticky note. It said, in thick black marker, "You're too old to keep up." My chest went tight. I stood there, shaking. I hadn't cried like that since the day I buried Henry. That night, I confronted her. "Ava, did you throw away those photos in the kitchen trash?" She didn't even look guilty. She was scrolling on her phone.
"Yeah," she said.
"They're depressing. That room's mine now, so stop acting like it's a museum." I tried to stay calm. I said, "You know how much those meant to me." She just shrugged. "You live in the past. Maybe that's why you're so miserable." That's when I told her she needed to find another place to stay. If she couldn't respect me or my home, she couldn't stay here.
She said, "Fine."
I'd rather live in a shelter than with some sad old woman stuck in 1975. She packed her things, took my laptop, left my old phone, and walked out. Someone picked her up in a black SUV. She didn't say goodbye, just slammed the door. Days turned into weeks. I didn't hear from her. My son said she was figuring things out. Nobody asked if I was okay. Then one morning, I got a letter from the county clerk's office. Official seal, heavy envelope. Inside was a copy of a property deed transfer for my house. The house I paid off. The house I built with Henry. Apparently, I had agreed to sell it to a company called Hillview Holdings LLC. There was a signed agreement and a notary stamp. It said I'd received $15,000 as a deposit. I never signed anything. I never spoke to anyone. But there it was. My name. My signature. Almost perfect, except the loops were too shaky. And right below it, listed as a witness, Ava Marie Layton. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just teenage spite. This was something deeper. Someone had gotten to her. Or she'd gone and done something unforgivable. Either way, she crossed a line. And I was going to find out exactly how far she went and how to take everything back.
I didn't sleep that night.
I sat at the kitchen table with the documents spread out, a cup of black coffee gone cold, and the lamp over my shoulder casting shadows that felt heavier than the paper in front of me. I stared at Ava's name, neat, confident, like she had every right to be on that form. The same girl who couldn't be bothered to rinse her plate had somehow witnessed the transfer of my home to some LLC I'd never heard of. I called the number listed on the document. It went straight to voicemail. So I drove to the county records office, took a number, waited almost 2 hours before someone could explain what I was looking at. The clerk, a kind man with soft eyes, scanned the pages and frowned. "Ma'am, this looks like a fraudulent transaction," he said. "We see this sometimes. Someone pretends to be the homeowner, sells it to a shell company, then disappears." "But how could this happen?" I asked. "I never signed this. I never spoke to anyone." He looked again. "Well, the signature's been notarized, which means someone, a notary, verified your identity and signature. That makes it tricky." I asked if I could reverse it. He sighed. "It's possible, but you'll need a lawyer. And fast. Especially if there's money changing hands. This company might try to take possession." I left that building feeling like someone had kicked the air out of my lungs. That afternoon, I called my son, Ava's father. He answered on speakerphone. I could hear traffic in the background. "Hey, Mom, everything okay?" "No," I said. "You need to listen. It's about Ava." The second I mentioned the house transfer, his voice changed. Defensive.
Cold.
"You're sure it was her?"
Yes.
"Her name is on the witness line." "Maybe it's a mix-up." "It's not," I snapped. "And I think she forged my signature." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Well, look, she's 17. Maybe someone talked her into something. Don't go jumping to conclusions." "Are you serious?" I said. "She tried to sell my house out from under me, and you're telling me not to overreact." "I'm saying maybe she made a mistake. Don't do anything drastic.
Please."
She's still my daughter." That's when it hit me. He knew, or at least he suspected, and he didn't want me making noise. I ended the call. I found a lawyer the next day, a tough woman named Sheila Hart who used to work in fraud recovery. I brought every document I had. She read them quietly, then looked at me and said, "She either got roped in by someone very slick, or she's the one running the game." We filed an emergency stay to block the sale, but Sheila warned me, if money already changed hands, it gets messy, especially if they used Ava as a strawman.
I didn't know what that meant.
She explained, sometimes scammers use family, especially minors, as clean witnesses. It gives the fraud cover. Legally, it looks less suspicious if a relative signs. Then she showed me something else. The company name, Hillview Holdings, was fake, but the LLC had ties to a real bank account in Missouri, and that bank account was linked to a prepaid debit card, opened in Ava's name. That's when I knew. She wasn't just tricked.
She was in on it.
She'd taken everything I gave her.
My trust.
My money. My home. And now she was trying to disappear with the deed to the only thing I had left of Henry. I sat in my car outside the lawyer's office for over an hour, staring at my hands, wondering where I'd gone wrong. wondering what kind of girl I raised or allowed to be raised to turn into someone who could do this. And I made a decision. I was going to get my house back. But I wasn't just going to reverse the paperwork. I was going to make sure Ava and anyone helping her knew exactly who they messed with. The next few days were a blur of paperwork and calls. My lawyer froze the title, which bought us time. But time wasn't going to undo what Ava did. I needed answers. I needed to know how a 17-year-old could pull off something like this. I started with a prepaid debit card. Sheila helped me file a subpoena to the bank. It took a few days, but when the records came back, the truth started to unravel. The account had been set up 2 months earlier. The same week, Ava started staying up until 3 a.m., locking her door and being cagey with her phone. The card had several deposits totaling $14,750. Nearly the entire amount the company claimed they'd paid for the down payment on the house. But it wasn't deposited from a corporate account. It came in small chunks. Venmo,
Zelle.
all from one name, Eric Delson. I didn't recognize it, but Sheila did. She pulled out her iPad and did a quick search. Up came an Instagram profile of a man in his early 30s, covered in tattoos, fancy car, posted photos of stacks of cash, motivational quotes about hustle and leaving the sheep behind. But more telling, he followed Ava, and she followed him back. I scrolled further, and there it was, a video clip, about 30 seconds long. Ava standing next to him in what looked like my study, laughing,
Posing.
She said, "Gotta love having old family connections. When people sleep on you, take their spot." He laughed and said, "Power moves only." The caption read, "Close the deal, level up. Generational wealth starts with bold steps." My hands went numb. She used my house, Henry's study, as a prop in some scam influencer's fake hustle brand. She'd torn down our life and turned it into a stage for some nobody's ego trip. I showed the clip to Sheila. "This man is involved. And that video? It's gold." We started building a case.
Fraud.
Elder abuse. Wire transfer tampering. But I needed more than legal revenge. I needed something personal. Something she'd feel. That's when I remembered the boxes in the garage. Henry's old journals, notes, and projects. One of them had a locked file box he used for documents back in the 80s. I never touched it. I figured it was all tax stuff. I broke it open. Inside, I found copies of our original home deed and a transfer clause Henry added after refinancing in the 90s. It said the house could not be legally sold or transferred without both of our notarized signatures, even in case of death, unless the surviving spouse waived the clause in writing, which I hadn't. That clause wasn't in the version Ava and her boyfriend used. Sheila's eyes lit up. This is it. This overrides everything. It also opened a door. If Ava signed that document knowing that clause existed and chose not to include it, that pushed her into a much more serious legal category, intentional fraud. But here's the twist that really gutted me. When Sheila filed for more banking info, another name popped up. My son. He transferred $2,000 to Ava's card the day before the first payment from Hillview Holdings. When I confronted him, he broke. He said he didn't know exactly what she was doing, but Ava told him she needed money to start something big and that she'd pay him back once she got the house sold. He said, "I thought she was bluffing. I didn't think she'd actually try to take it from you." I told him he was dead to me. He said, "She's my daughter." What was I supposed to do? I answered, "Raise her better. Or at least not help her rob your own mother." Now I knew. I wasn't just dealing with a rebellious teen or a shady boyfriend. This was a coordinated betrayal, and I was going to answer it the way they deserved. The day of the hearing, I wore Henry's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. It was a gray Thursday morning, and the courtroom smelled like dust and old wood polish. Sheila stood beside me, sharp as ever in her gray suit, calm and cold. Ava sat across the aisle, trying to look innocent in a soft pink sweater. Her lawyer looked like he'd been hired off Craigslist. She didn't look at me once. Not when I walked in. Not when I sat down. Not even when they read the charges.
Fraud. Forgery.
Attempted unlawful transfer of property. Conspiracy to commit theft. Her face stayed frozen, but I saw it right at the edges. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then came the video. The judge watched it twice. Ava and her boyfriend Eric. In my house, laughing, bragging, calling my life a stepping stone. It was like watching my own grief turned into a TikTok skit. When the judge saw the original clause in our home deed, Henry's protection, written decades ago, his entire tone changed. He called it a premeditated attempt to deceive an elderly homeowner using familial access and emotional trust. Then they brought in the bank statements, Ava's prepaid card, the Venmo transfers from Eric, the side payments from my own son. I sat there listening to the life I'd built be turned into a crime scene. The judge froze the title indefinitely and voided the fake transfer. The house was mine again, legally and forever. But the emotional damage wasn't that easy to erase. When it came time for sentencing, I had the option to pursue full charges.
Jail time.
Sheila asked me privately, "Do you want her behind bars?" I thought about that for a long time, and I said, no. I want her future haunted by what she did. I want her name tied to this forever. So we made a deal. Ava avoided jail, but not without punishment. Her credit? Ruined. She was placed on 5 years of probation with mandatory restitution payments to me every month. The court ordered her to pay back every dollar she touched from the scam, $14, $7.50, plus legal fees. They garnished her wages for life until it's paid. She also had to write a formal, public apology. Not just to me, but posted online, visible to every school or employer she ever applies to. As for Eric, he didn't get so lucky. Turns out he had 3 similar scams under investigation. With the new evidence from our case, the authorities charged him with multiple counts of fraud across state lines. He's facing serious time. My son? I told him I didn't want to hear his voice again. He tried calling, texting, sent me flowers on Mother's Day with a card that said, "Family is forever." I mailed the card back, torn in half. He helped dig the knife in. And I'm too old to spend my final years pretending betrayal doesn't cost. Ava never came back to the house. Not once. Not even to apologize in person. The study is still empty. But I left it that way. Every book, every photo, every smell Henry left behind is exactly where it should be. Some ghosts are worth keeping. Others I let go. And the day I got the court papers finalizing everything, I lit a candle in that study, sat in Henry's old chair, and whispered to the room. She thought she could erase you, but I remembered who I am. And I'll never forget again.